What's up, everybody? This is Lauren Delisa Coleman back with you again for another episode of the Inside series that we have here at film.io. We have an interview that I've been kind of tracking / stalking since Tribeca. It's kind of a holdover from there because she's just so fabulous and so busy that our schedules, it was kind of hard to sync. But now the stars have aligned and I have Melissa Daniels with me. And I am really just about to jump into a very fun episode for you guys because she is the executive producer and line producer behind a film that debuted actually during Tribeca Film Festival called Venus as a Boy. And so, Melissa, welcome so much to the show. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited we were finally able to connect.
I know, finally, right? It seems like a long time. It's only just been kind of a long time, right? But there is no time.
What is time in 2021?
Pandemic era, right? It's just like a whole new concept. But I am glad that we're able to speak with you because, you have a really interesting and important perspective around this film as exec producer. And so, I want to also, be able to have you share a little bit about We the People, your production company, because it has such a cool mission around it. But first, let's start by having a synopsis for our viewers from you, please, on what Venus as a Boy is about.
Yeah, Venus as a Boy is this incredible story. It follows a struggling artist by the name of Hunter, who's played by Ty Hodges, who was our writer and director and star of the film. And it kind of follows his journey as he's sort of in limbo. He's really struggling as an artist in terms of finding his way. And he has this chance encounter with this beautiful woman, played by Olivia Colpo. And they sort of have this whirlwind of a weekend together, and he follows her to New York. And they definitely come from different sides of the tracks, if you will. Hunter being this incredible artist, and Olivia's character, Ruby, who is this high-powered fashion influencer, she's a woman about the town. She's on her business, and you sort of see them clash in a multitude of different ways. The film kind of talks a little bit about, just the journey that you have as an artist and really trying to truly find yourself and find your voice. But it also touches on a lot of socioeconomic types of things. We deal with there's interaction with police officers, and for viewers who don't know, Ty is a Black man, Olivia, our other lead, is a white woman, and so you see this interaction that they have, which really kind of crosses racial bounds, and just a multitude of different struggles as they clash on a personality level. And so it's this really beautiful story of kind of watching Hunter's journey as an artist and sort of evolving towards the end. So I won't give anything away, but it's a very powerful story that I think a lot of people in the film community and just artists in general can relate with.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I have to say that was probably one of our more compelling synopses that I think we've had on the series to date, because it really kind of draws you into the film. And I think that's just kind of indicative of what the film is kind of about, or just the vibe around it. I don't know. I just thought it was great because it's very contemporary, like you said, and it's about, creatives and race relations and et cetera, which was very of the moment, but in a very, kind of cool way, and it wasn't something that was just kind of a story that just existed in any time or in limbo. So tell me how this story came to you at your production company, and give us, if you will, a little bit around your production company, because I love how it's called We the People. So, tell our viewers kind of the context, what that kind of brand stands for, if you will. And then, as I said, how you guys came to produce Venus as a Boy.
For sure. Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head. You had said this is very much a vibe, and Venus as a Boy is very much a vibe. Ty, who is our creator, is one of the most creative individuals out there. And this story is so personal and so unique in so many different ways. And I think the way I came about it was the lead producer on the project, Gianfranco, is a friend of mine. We go back, a decade or so from our days back when I lived in Seattle, and we had, groups of friends that sort of crossed paths, but always sort of stayed in touch. And they reached out probably a week and a half prior to the film getting ready to go into production. And we're like, we just lost our line producer. And Gian was slated to produce the film from that standpoint. And they were like, we need funding. We have a lot of stuff going on. Can you come and help? And I was like, let me read the script. Let me see what's going on. And I read the script and I immediately fell in love with the characters. I fell in love with the story. It was something that it's very much a millennial love story.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But like not in that corny way, right? In a cool, edgy way. In a New York kind of way, I have to say, okay, a little bit biased. But yeah, it just reminded me of like, I don't know, either people you knew or watched or whatever, like downtown in New York, right? But without overdoing it.
Yeah, I mean, you see the art scene in LA, you see the artist life in LA. Hunter, our lead character, lives in Venice. And then you are thrust into this like upscale art world in New York as well. So you're sort of seeing this dichotomy of things, and you're seeing like this really unique, authentic journey of somebody truly struggling. And please forgive my cat in the back.
He's doing his walk on, right? We don't do SAG or after here at film.io. Sorry, but that's okay. But we've had all kinds of pets. Don't even worry about it. But yeah, so I think that's part of really, the essence or the attractiveness, if you will, of the film. But back to you, like coming in at a crisis point, because I'd love to hear you speak a little bit to that, because I mean, that's obviously happening to many other people, maybe some of you who are watching. How do you kind of handle that when you are kind of thrust into something? You don't want to say no, right? Because you like the project, but it's a crazy kind of scenario. You don't have any run up. How did you manage that kind of personally and professionally?
We make this joke that we could make a movie about making this movie, because anything that could go wrong basically could go wrong.
No way.
So I will not sugarcoat it. Every day was a fire drill. I never really truly had an opportunity to get ahead. We were always sort of like planning for the next day. I had about 5 days to prep what I think turned out to be 28 days of filming, around that realm. And we filmed in LA, all over LA. We had a skeleton crew go out to New York to capture the scenes that were there. But this film is very location heavy. Yeah. It's very art heavy. And so it was just a really unique challenge. My background is actually in commercial production. And so in the commercial space, which is very different from like the narrative film space, you're having to churn things out left and right and on really quick turnarounds. And so I think my strengths and capabilities from being able to execute under tight deadlines, under like extenuating circumstances, really lent itself to this specific film, just because I didn't really have that lead time. I mean, most features you're going to have several months of prep time, and we had like a solid week in the office, and then it was like we're on set and we got to go. So it was definitely a challenge. We had so many different things happen. We had a location fall through the morning of. We had a flooded toilet that on the second floor of a location that came down through the first floor ceiling, like all sorts of things that were just, you can't plan for those things. And as producers, it's so challenging because you are in charge of thinking through 50 different things that could go wrong, having solutions for what those issues can be, whether or not they pop up. You have to be prepared and be able to step into a space of taking care of it. And so this was just such a unique challenge in that. I think everybody was exhausted by the time we wrapped. Our last few days on set were out in the Mojave Desert. What makes this film super unique is there are elements that are shot kind of in Hunter's headspace. And so you're sort of seeing things play out in real time, but then you're also thrust into his headspace world, where you're seeing these like really beautiful fine art vignettes that were gorgeously shot by our DP, Adrian Pruitt. And, it's this really unique dichotomy between reality and what is not reality, which also adds another unique element to this film too. But we just had so many different things thrown at us. It was very challenging, super rewarding, because we had a really wonderful crew. Everybody was just, it really turned into what felt like a family environment, which was really cool, because I think you hear a lot of that on sets, but then you also hear a lot of horror stories on sets where you're like, I'm never working with that person again. So it was great. It was a good experience. And we survived and we premiered at Tribeca, which is
I was going to say not just survived, but thrived even. But to
yeah.
go back just briefly to, a couple of the, one of or several of the many fires you had to put out, how do you think you were able to manage those? Was it because, I know you said your background, but in like the thick of that moment, were you able to just kind of, I don't know, use your network, for example, to ensure that you could get another location very quickly or something like that? I mean, how does one kind of overcome that? And it kind of reminds me of, do you remember this series that was on, oh, I want to say FX, but that wasn't it. No, it was like an AMC show. I forget. But anyway, they would take you behind the scenes of like massively popular films and then, go through all the what happens and no one would know this. Anyway, Silence of the Lambs was one of those which had everything go wrong that could possibly go wrong. And you hear the filmmakers talk about this, right? So it's behind the scenes of this. And you can't believe it. They're shooting in, I think it was Baltimore, and it was like, 20 degrees and just so many things that happened. But you hear how, they overcame. And so with your particular scenario, especially with things like, leaks and things like that, what did you do, or what do you do, and what kind of tips do you have for that?
For sure. I mean, first and foremost, you have to have a really strong team. I had an incredible production manager working side by side with me the whole time, Ksenia Yorsh, who I would not have survived this filming experience if it were not for her. So, really having a team that you can trust and lean on when those things pop up and say, okay, like you have to delegate, you have to. For me, like one thing that I usually always will do is I tap into previous projects, and I'm always looking for whether it's a location that falls through, a cast member that falls through. It's always, okay, do I have something in my wheelhouse or my database that I've previously explored before, or I might have a contact that can lead me somewhere, or, hey, I know this person who's also shot something similar. Let me reach out to them and see what resources they have. So it's constantly like just really trying to be as resourceful as possible. I started my career working in broadcast television news, working in like a Market 5 newsroom. And that was honestly trial by fire. And it gave me the best training in logistics of how to best prioritize. And I've carried that with me forward. So I also keep everything. So if I need to go back to a call sheet, I can easily reference like, oh, who was that crew member who did this? Or
that's so great. So you're super organized.
Oh yeah.
Just kind of personally, I mean, do you practice any breathing techniques or things like that? I think that not enough is maybe discussed about one's person as you're going through that, or how do you recover or restore? Because clearly if that happens for each film, or like you said, ever since your career, you're going to be burnt out, right? Just physically, emotionally, spiritually. Is there anything like kind of, personal that you would want to share that, is like a kind of go-to for you in those kind of instances? Or at the end of the day, is it a hot bath? What is it for you?
I love that you asked that, because I think it's so important, especially as producers. It's like one of the most thankless jobs. And we're the ones that are charged with making sure safety is always of the utmost priority, and really just taking care of all of our department heads. And so that's a really beautiful question, because mental health is so important. I started a meditation practice about 1.5 years ago, well, probably 2 years ago now. I think, 2 years. It's been 2 years. We are well into 2021.
Yeah.
And so I usually meditate for anywhere from like 10 to 15 minutes in the morning. When I find that my fight or flight is starting to get triggered, or those cortisol levels are really rising, breathing through my diaphragm is something that's really helps me a lot. It kind of like helps regulate that nervous system. And so those are like just some things that I personally use. But what was really unique about this project was you talk about burnout, and I feel like I am the poster child for that, because I was probably at my lowest burnout point when I said yes to this film. And so it definitely made every day of a fire drill so much more difficult. I love work. I love what I do. I am so passionate about being a producer. I love people, and I love being on set. And so working in this capacity is truly like one of my favorite things in the entire world. But I recognize that if you're not showing up as your best self, you can't be your best self for everybody else that needs you. And so it's so important for you to be able to take that time. And so once we wrapped Venus, I was thrust into another short, which is actually premiering at Dances with Films. It's called Garage.
Oh, coolness, because we're going to be covering, we already did like 2 pre-interviews for Dances with Films.
Awesome. Yeah, we have a really great short called Garage that's premiering at Dances with Films this year, which I'm so excited about. It's on August 30th, and it's at the TCL Chinese Theater, which is so
Yeah. Everybody who's involved in that seems to be super excited. There's a very cool vibe around that film. Around that festival. Yeah.
What I love about Dances with Film so far is honestly the way that they talk to the filmmakers about it. This is not one of those festivals where they're handing out awards left and right. It truly is a festival for the filmmakers. So they really make it a point to say we give out 2 awards, nothing else. And it's not a competition. It's more so an opportunity for filmmakers to come, to get to know each other, to collaborate, because you never know, like the next film you make could be with somebody that you meet at that festival.
Right.
I'm super excited for that, but I went straight into production on that film. And so it wasn't really until end of November, December that I was finally able to take some time to breathe and to really just relax and rest and recharge. And going into 2021, from such a fresher perspective and from a space of being more renewed. But it's so hard and it's so challenging to make sure that you're constantly checking in with yourself as you go throughout that, because when you're not, you get to that place of depletion where you really just have nothing else in your tank to give. And
so true.
Film is so stressful as it is. So, if you're not able to take that time for yourself and really make sure that you're, a good friend of mine, or not a good friend of mine, but a co-producer of mine on a different project, on a documentary. She is really well known in the outdoor doc space, and she started doing this thing called Tech Shabbat, where she shuts off her phone on Friday.
You have to. I was just saying to somebody else on Sundays, do not look for me. This is the time when I have to, restore. But I learned that the hard way, which we don't have to, get into right now. But it's just, if anybody's, watching, listening, your adrenals with stress and pressure all the time on them, I got to learn from some very, very talented healthcare professionals about that. But like, if you can have these conversations before your body has to be the experiment, so to speak, it's a good thing. So all those things that you can take to bolster and all the adaptogens and all that is really, really key. So I was just kind of curious about that, because it sounds like it was really crazy, but you seem like, you're pretty balanced, already. So I was like, I get the sense from her that she probably does something. And you said that, you started meditating.
I mean, listen, I have been through it. I have learned the hard way.
Sounds like it. I mean, especially if you were in a newsroom, come on, like that is trial by fire, as you said.
For sure. Well, what I always try and use to keep into perspective, and I share this with a lot of PAs, coordinators, LPs that have worked under me and for me, is that when I was working in a newsroom, it really was truly life or death situations. Now I get paid to make beautiful images for people to enjoy and to love. So we're not really saving lives here. We can change lives with the content that we create, but it's never that situation where things can't be fixed, or, we can't take a minute to pause. Like the next day is going to come whether you want it to or not. And you just have to do your best to prepare for the day ahead and deal with the challenges that come after that.
So true. I'm so glad that you could share that, especially, in light of the success, right? Because I think too often we talk only about the success, and the film debuted, Tribeca and all that, but there, is a backstory that's not only professional, but personal. But you have an interesting, I guess I would say, holistic approach anyway, because tell us more about We the People, your production company, and kind of what that stands for.
Sure. So I have a really interesting background where I've worked in TV news. I ran an online music publication for 3 years. I have built my career in film up from starting as a production assistant. And so I've worked in every capacity in the production department all the way up to producing. And so I've worked at big production companies, some of the most prominent production companies that are known globally in the commercial space. I've worked in-house at advertising agencies, and I've worked on the brand side. My last real 9 to 5 was helping run the branded content division at GoPro. And so that job actually relocated me from Seattle to LA, and it was a great job on paper, but it didn't quite turn out to be exactly what we were hoping for when we all signed on. It was kind of at this really unique time in the company's history. And so after I left GoPro, I had been headhunted by Netflix and BuzzFeed and like all these other big media conglomerates. But I kind of had always had this understanding and knowledge since I was a child that I was going to run my own business and that I was going to be the boss and I was going to do something that truly affected some kind of change. And it just was sort of this perfect storm that after I left GoPro, I thought, why not me? Why not now? Production is a space that I absolutely love. Storytelling has always been at my core. I have a journalism background, of course, and my degree from college was in journalism. But I wanted to be able to try and create a space for creatives and filmmakers of underrepresented voices. And so that has always been my MO. I can't tell you how many times I've been the only woman on set or the only Mexican on set or just the only like person of color in a room. And it's so uncomfortable. And so, I kept seeing these patterns throughout my entire career, whether it was in the newsroom or at the music magazine or in production. And I really wanted to try and change that. And of course, now it's like this really big popular thing, like diversity, equity, inclusion. But like I've been doing that and it's been a part of my core since day one. And so for me, building We the People was this opportunity to take the best of all the things that I've learned and actually implement them in a way where I can create a safe space for creatives to come to create content. We offer production services for agencies and those types of things as well, but we do have a roster of underrepresented creatives. And I love that. It's an opportunity for us to be able to promote directors who don't always have they're not always on like the triple bids when you're looking at like commercial work. And what's really unique is that over the last probably 18 to 24 months, originals have started to pop up and become more and more present in my life, which is amazing. Because it was always something that I thought was going to take us years to be able to get to a point where we're able to like dabble in features and put out the documentaries that we want to. And so I've always had this like really incredible slate of content that's sort of, been marinating and sitting there. And, I've had a couple shorts that have done really well. And now we have Venus as a Boy that we were able to be a part of with Lost Ones, which is really exciting. And so it to me feels like we're just continuing to build and grow. And one of my favorite things as well is this was by no plan, but I have a lot of first-time filmmakers come to me when they're looking for guidance and support. And so I've been able to sort of create a space where it's safe for people to come and make mistakes and learn and grow. And so that those words have gotten around and people's experiences working with We the People have gotten around. And so people come to us all the time looking for that type of help and support. And that to me is one of like the most beautiful parts of what I do and what we've been able to create with We the People is because that's why I sought out to like start this company in the first place, was to be able to create a space where you're hearing from underrepresented voices, but you're also having people who have authority to speak into the spaces that they're creating content for, do so, because especially on the commercial side, you have like straight white men that are trying to tell like a Black trans story. And it's like, well, what experience do you really have in this space? And why are you the right person to be telling this story? So I'm not afraid to have those hard conversations. I'm not afraid to push and make sure that we have diversity on screen. I walk away from productions all the time, having clients come to me and say, wow, like this was the most diverse set I've ever been on. And I'm like, well, yeah, like that's what we are about, but it's really not that difficult. This is how it should be. Like our sets and our workforce should look like the communities that we're a part of. And so those are really sort of just some of the foundational elements of why I started We the People and kind of what we're hoping to continue to do.
Melissa, that's great. I mean, it's really become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, the name of it just says it all, right? So I'm not surprised that it even it's spreading, throughout the industry, and it's becoming, it sounds like, even more than you set out to accomplish in terms of kind of mentoring, which I feel like it's a bigger word than mentoring, right? Actually almost creating or holding a space for people to come just to be able to share and to learn. And I think that is so important, especially as so many people are shooting so many different things and under so many challenging conditions, right? So it's cool to be able to know where you can go somewhere and ask some questions without feeling like well, if I ask, I'm going to look like I'm stupid or I don't know. And I think that that's always really important. So to that end, make sure that everybody knows how to, if you're not already overwhelmed, how to be able to, get in touch with you or follow you on social media, or, just at least be able to check out the site for the company, because that's wethepeople.com, correct? Mm-hmm. And then anything else that you want to throw out there as well in terms of social?
Yeah, sure. Our website is wethepeoplecreative.com. You can find us on Instagram at wethepeoplecreative as well. Come say hello. We actually have our first inaugural term of interns this semester, which I'm really excited about. So we've built this really wonderful internship program too. So for college students that are interested in learning and growing, this is a really great place to come as well. But yeah, check back with us and keep in touch, because
wow, it's just so amazing that you have just so many things going on, but you can really feel your energy coming through, that this is like, I can't imagine you doing anything else. Like this is your realm for sure. And thank you again so much for taking the time and that we were able to catch up with you. It was well worth the wait. And everybody, I hope that you had a great time being able to listen to Melissa. I hope you got some inspiration. Of course, we will be bringing you many more episodes on film.io right here through the Inside series. And I am Lauren Delisa Coleman.